Hey guys, tonight we're going to step into a smoky, sunlit courtyard in the heart of ancient Alexandria, where the clink of ceramic cups and the hiss of boiling water are the last peaceful sounds before history starts to unravel. You're standing barefoot on warm, mosaic tiles, watching steam curl from a worn brass teapot. There's cinnamon in the air. There's tension, too, unspoken but sharp. A scholar's hand trembles slightly as he lifts his cup. It's a small moment. Ordinary. You probably won't survive this. So, before you get comfortable, take a moment to like the video and subscribe, but only if you genuinely enjoy what I do here. And hey, where are you listening from tonight? Drop your location and local time in the comments. Now, dim the lights, maybe turn on a fan for that soft background hum, and let's ease into tonight's journey together. You trudge across the marble courtyard as shadows stretch long over the domes of Alexandria. It's late afternoon, and the sun's dragging its golden belly over the rooftops. The sea breeze nudges your robe, salty and faintly fishy, less refreshing Mediterranean and more Poseidon's armpit. A distant gull screams like someone just broke up with it. You're here to deliver tea, an odd blend, something experimental. The scholar who ordered it is eccentric even by Library of Alexandria standards, and that's saying something. He's holed up in the West Wing, where the really unstable philosophers live, people who argue whether reality is real while forgetting to wear shoes. You carry the cup gently, because the last assistant who spilled something was reassigned to scroll cleaning duty, which mostly involves sneezing in dusty darkness and being yelled at by squirrels. You round a corner and step over a sleeping cat. The cup trembles slightly. So do you. The door creaks open. Inside, it's a mess. Piles of scrolls, maps, and unwashed dishes crowd every flat surface. The scholar doesn't look up. He's muttering to himself in Greek and Phoenician, possibly simultaneously. You set the tea down, bow, and prepare to leave, but something crackles behind you. A blue spark flickers near a metal coil on the work table. The tea, it seems, wasn't just for sipping. It's part of a heating experiment involving magnetism, lightning stones, and what looks suspiciously like a stolen piece of temple equipment. The tea steams. The coil shudders. The cat bolts. You back away slowly. Too late. The coil pops with a sound like the universe hiccuping, and a spray of tiny sparks leaps onto a pile of scrolls. You freeze. The scholar leaps into action, by which I mean he waves a piece of parchment at the fire and screams in Aramaic. You grab a pitcher of water and dump it over the sparks. It sizzles. The scrolls darken. The fire appears to go out. You both stare at the scorched edges. No harm done, he mutters. He's wrong. Later, you'll swear you saw a curl of smoke sneak between the shelves, heading deeper into the library. But in the moment, you tell yourself it's just the tea. Just the steam. Just the heat playing tricks. You leave the room with a pounding heart and an empty pitcher. Outside, Alexandria hums along in its usual chaos, markets braying, philosophers lecturing to pigeons, a politician trying to invent pence. You look back once. The scholar is already scribbling again, as if the world's greatest library didn't just have its first whiff of doom. Historians still argue whether this fire was the first, or just one in a long, slow series of small blazes that eroded the library's holdings bit by bit. There's no single smoking scroll, no undeniable matchstick villain. But tonight, for our purposes, we're going with the tea. And honestly, it kind of fits. Something this massive wouldn't die from an explosion or a siege. No, it would unravel over something trivial. Human. Petty. Like a badly supervised science project involving herbal tea and a stolen lightning rock. You move away from the scholar's chamber, trying not to look back again. The smell of smoke still lingers in your nostrils, or maybe it's just your nerves. Either way, your feet take you deeper into the heart of the library. You follow the cool hush of stone corridors, past niches carved into walls where oil lamps flicker like ancient fireflies. Every few steps, a scribe scurries past with arms full of scrolls, muttering about cataloging errors or how someone shelved Virgil under A4 annoying. And then the library opens up in front of you. Even now, you can't help it, your breath catches. The grand reading hall is impossibly vast. Light streams in from lattice windows high above, catching motes of dust in its golden fingers. The walls rise like a canyon of knowledge, lined with scrolls stacked on scrolls stacked on scrolls. You squint upward. You're pretty sure the top row requires a ladder, a pulley system, or perhaps divine intervention. You wander in, trying to blend in with the scholars. Some are bent over low desks, scribbling furiously in wax tablets or muttering incantations to their ink pots. A few are arguing quietly, possibly about the heliocentric model, possibly about lunch. You pass a particularly animated duo debating whether dreams are divine messages or just brain farts. It's unclear who's winning, but the taller one keeps making wild gestures with a goose feather. The air here smells like dry papyrus, beeswax, and ego. You feel it in your bones. This is not just a building. This is a statement. Alexandria was built to outlast Babylon, to make Athens look like a provincial book club. The library is the jewel of Ptolemaic ambition, a sprawling monument to the idea that knowledge, hoarded properly, equals power. Historians agree that at its peak, the library may have housed between 400,000 and 700,000 scrolls. No one knows the exact number, because no one left a good receipt system, but the goal was audacious: collect every written work in the known world. Every poem, play, legal document, medical remedy, religious chant, recipe, joke, and treatise. If it was written, the library wanted it. And if it wasn't written yet, well, they'd probably just force someone to write it. You move past a group of students crammed into a shadowy alcove, passing around a scroll with giggles and suspicious glances. It's a band comedy from Syracuse, a city famous for inventing the water screw and terrible romantic subplots. One student offers to let you peek. You pretend to decline, but your eyes betray you. The punchline involves an astrologer, a goat, and a jar of fig paste. You snort, quietly. In the far corner, a faded mural shows a ship arriving in Alexandria's harbor. And that's not just a pretty picture, it's policy. You remember what you were taught: every foreign ship entering the port was searched for scrolls. If found, they were copied. Sometimes, the originals were borrowed permanently and a duplicate sent back. The librarians called it preservation. The merchants called it theft. Tomato, tomatu. There's a story that the library once got hold of the original plays of Euripides and Sophocles this way. The scrolls were borrowed from Athens, copied with eerie precision, and then, oops, never returned. Some historians still argue whether that story is exaggerated, or just a typical Tuesday in Alexandria. You reach the center of the hall, where an enormous circular desk holds catalogs, actual scrolls about scrolls. It's a scrollception nightmare. A sleepy attendant lifts one eyelid as you pass, then immediately returns to his nap. You don't blame him. The scent of all this knowledge is oddly soothing, like lavender mixed with arrogance. You touch a nearby shelf. The papyrus is rough under your fingers, rolled tightly and tagged with a knotted string. Each scroll is labeled in Greek, demonic, or sometimes something you don't recognize, maybe Carthaginian, maybe just bad handwriting. You pull one gently. It's a treatise on fish migration. You raise an eyebrow. The next is on embalming techniques using crushed garlic and prayer. The next is a theory that all dreams are actually echoes from other people's minds. You blink. Okay, so maybe not everything here is gold. But still, you feel it. You're surrounded by the collective memory of civilizations. It's all here. Or it was. Before the tea. Before the spark. Before the slow creep of fire. A wind stirs through the open archways, fluttering scroll tags and making the lamps flicker again. You remember that tiny spark back in the scholar's room. It didn't look like much. Just a flicker. But in a place like this, with walls of dry papyrus and linen-covered notes, it might as well have been a dragon's sneeze. You pause. You think you smell something again. Charcoal. Slightly sweet. Slightly wrong. But before you can move toward it, a voice calls out. Boy, one of the head scribes waves at you, holding a scroll at arm's length like it just insulted his mother. This one's been eaten. Again. Find the cat that did it and make her copy the ending herself. You nod, bow, and step backward, the smell still faint in your nose. Somewhere in the stacks, something is smoldering. You slip away from the grumbling scribe, careful not to crinkle your sandals too loudly on the tiled floor. There's a rhythm to the library, like a deep inhale and exhale of thought, papers rustling, chalk scratching, someone somewhere gently weeping over a miscopied equation. You follow the pulse of it now, not away from danger but toward the source, because something in you wants to understand what kind of place could fall to something as stupid as a misfired tea experiment. And that takes you back to the beginning. Not your beginning, no, this started long before you, but the vision that built this paper palace in the first place. The mind behind the shelves. You're standing now beneath a statue of Ptolemy Isoter, the man who decided that knowledge should have a palace. He stares down at you with the blank, mild judgment of someone who definitely thinks you should be wearing cleaner robes. Around his stone feet, an inscription boasts of a dream, a place where the collected wisdom of every civilization would be gathered, translated, and made available to the world. Or at least, to the world's elite. You know, important people. Like Ptolemy. Ptolemy wasn't born a pharaoh. He was a Macedonian general who served under Alexander the Great. Yes, that Alexander, the one who named more cities after himself than most people name pets. After Alex died from too much conquest and possibly way too much wine, his empire split like a clay pot dropped from Olympus. Ptolemy snagged Egypt and promptly declared himself king. But ruling wasn't enough. He wanted legacy. Immortality. So he founded the library. Not as a public good, mind you, this wasn't your local library with beanbags and overdue fees. This was a temple of power disguised as a house of learning. You stockpile scrolls. You control what people know. Control what they know. You shape what they do. It's like brain real estate. Historians still argue whether Ptolemy genuinely cared about intellectual progress or just liked showing off. Probably both. He was the kind of guy who'd donate a fortune to science, then get mad when no one painted his face on the moon. But he started something bigger than himself. The library wasn't just about books, it was part of the Malseion, a research institute named for the Muses, goddesses of inspiration. The Malseion had lecture halls, dining rooms, botanical gardens, dissecting rooms, yes, for actual human dissection, and even housing for scholars. You could live here, breathe here, never leave, like a nerd monastery with better acoustics. And Ptolemy invited thinkers from across the known world, Persians, Babylonians, Indians, Greeks, Jews, and a few visitors who claimed to be from Atlantis but maybe just had bad maps. He paid them to come, think, argue, and write. He fed them. He housed them. Occasionally, he annoyed them by requesting they dedicate their next groundbreaking paper to him. It worked. The brightest minds of the ancient world passed through these halls. Eratosthenes, who measured the Earth's circumference using shadows and a stick, Herophilus, who dissected brains before it was trendy, and Hypatia, the philosopher-mathematician who showed up later and managed to dazzle everyone while somehow not setting anything on fire. You step into a smaller reading chamber, now. This one's quieter, almost sacred. A skylight filters down soft gold across stone benches and a bronze sundial. Here, a man snores softly beside a scroll of star charts. Another murmurs in Hebrew, translating fragments of an old Babylonian myth into Greek, mumbling when he gets to the part about the god with 7 heads and a drinking problem. And you can feel it again, that thrum of purpose. The library wasn't just hoarding knowledge. It was remixing it, translating it, comparing philosophies, testing medicine, inventing things that wouldn't catch on for 2,000 years. It was the world's first information processor. But, as you well know, processors run hot. And when they catch fire, they burn everything. You sit for a moment on one of the benches. You imagine Ptolemy here, restless, brilliant, slightly paranoid, maybe a bit sweaty. He didn't live to see the library's prime, but he started the spark. Yeah, that word again. Above your head, the rafters creak. The air feels heavier. You're not sure if it's the afternoon heat, the rising tension, or the creeping dread that something old and priceless is curling into ash as you sit here soaking up the ambience. You look toward the doorway. There's a flutter of movement, someone rushing past, robes pulled tight, scrolls clutched to chest. A scholar. Wide-eyed. Moving fast. That's not normal. You rise, slowly. Somewhere, far off, there's a sound like dry leaves shifting. Not quite a roar. Not yet, but close. One last glance at the statue of Ptolemy. He doesn't blink. You move on. You duck into the corridor again, the cool air of the reading chamber giving way to a dry warmth that's starting to feel suspicious. The scent of papyrus has shifted, less aged parchment, more singed parchment. You quicken your pace, weaving past junior scribes in mustard-stained robes, their arms full of scrolls, their eyes glued to the floor, oblivious to the slow, creeping tension blooming like mold through the halls. And as you round a corner near the eastern wing, it hits you. The sheer ridiculous scale of it all. There are scrolls everywhere. Rows and rows, stacked in honeycomb niches up to the domed ceilings, labeled in 12 different scripts, organized by topic, subtopic, country of origin, philosophical alignment, and, rumor has it, how dramatic the author was. You pass a section marked metaphysics, heavy, and another that just says spells probably real. It's absurd. It's glorious. It's also incredibly flammable. You slow near one of the annexes, where carts groan under piles of new acquisitions. The library isn't just a storage closet for Greek thinkers, it's a cultural vacuum, sucking in knowledge from every direction. You peek at one scroll at random, Sanskrit medical text translated by a merchant who swears he saw someone bring a dead dog back to life with goat urine. Another scroll is a list of herbal aphrodisiacs from ancient Nubia. There's even a jar labeled recipes, possibly edible. How did they get all this stuff? You already know. The librarians had a plan, a beautifully annoying one. Every ship that docked in Alexandria's harbor was inspected for scrolls. If found, they were confiscated temporarily, copied by a team of furious scribes, and then, well, the originals returned were sometimes a little too fresh-smelling, if you catch the drift. In fact, the port's nickname among foreign traders became the place where books go to retire. One famous incident? The library somehow acquired the complete works of Aeschylus, Sophocles, and Euripides from the Athenians, by promising to return them after copying. Spoiler, they didn't. Instead, they sent back beautiful replicas and kept the originals under lock and key. Historians still argue whether that was theft or preservation. Either way, Athens never lent them anything again. You step into the main scriptorium, where the real magic happens, or chaos, depending on your perspective. This is where the library's scribes do the hard labor of copying, translating, and preserving knowledge one painstaking stroke at a time. And let's be real, it's not glamorous. You walk past desks cluttered with ink pots, scraped parchment, and crumbs from late-night fig cakes. One guy is asleep on his wax tablet, a blot of ink slowly soaking into his hair. Another scribe is arguing with herself in Latin and Coptic, because apparently, that helps her stay awake. Here's a fun tidbit. Scribes were often ranked based on their speed and accuracy. The really good ones got free wine rations. The mediocre ones got assigned to catalog herbal laxatives. And the worst? Well, some were demoted to papyrus rehydration, basically papyrus spa duty, involving buckets, humidity, and zero intellectual respect. You pause beside a pair of elderly copyists bickering over the translation of a Babylonian farming manual. It clearly means plow with oxen, one hisses. Not massage the goat. They glare at you. You bow and move on. Further in, the foreign language wing hums with whispered debates. Hebrew scrolls meet Phoenician legends. Hindu cosmology rubs shoulders with Egyptian funerary chants. It's dazzling. It's chaotic. It's not always accurate, like the Greek translation of a Chinese medicinal herb list that ended up prescribing the breath of a small dragon for constipation. But that's what the library was, not just a repository, but a blender. A pressure cooker of ideas from across the world, all jammed together and forced to interact. Sometimes that led to breakthroughs. Other times, it led to philosophical slap fights over who invented trigonometry first. Quirky fringe fact? There's a persistent rumor among staff that one scroll hidden deep in the library contains instructions for a machine that runs on steam, created centuries before such technology would exist again. You haven't seen it, but then, that's the thing. No one has. It's always just in the next room, just being cataloged, just went out for more gears. You're pretty sure it's the scribed version of an urban legend. Still, you'd like to believe it. That somewhere in this insane paper ocean, there's a blueprint for an engine that could have kicked off the Industrial Revolution 1600 years early, if only someone had lit the right candle instead of, accidentally burning the entire library down. Another whisper of smoke. You turn. One of the scribes is staring at the ceiling. A tiny curl of gray drifts down between the beams. He frowns. I thought that was incense, he mutters. It isn't. The fire is moving. Slowly. Strategically, almost, as if it knows the layout better than the architects did. And of course it does. The architects didn't think like fire. They didn't imagine that something as noble as a scroll could become fuel. They didn't design for destruction. You're not panicking yet, but your stomach tightens. You walk back through the scriptorium. A few scribes are now looking up, sniffing. One woman has quietly begun packing her scrolls into a satchel. Not her belongings, her scrolls. She's not leaving behind a lifetime of translations, even if it means inhaling smoke through a damp cloth and climbing out a window. She sees you watching. She raises an eyebrow. "Don't look so surprised," she says. "You think we didn't know this would happen eventually?" And with that, she disappears into the shelves. You watch her vanish between the columns of scrolls, the soft slap of her sandals already fading into the murmur of paper and panic. She said it like it was inevitable, that the fire, or a fire, was always going to come. And somehow, as you glance at the warped lamplight and smell that not quite right scent thickening in the air, you start to believe her. The truth is, the library has always been held together more by ambition than architecture. You see it now, in the walls patched with mismatched stone, in the makeshift ladders jammed into niches 3 stories high, in the endless scrolls stacked so tight they groan under their own weight. This place was built for dreams, not durability. Still, for all its fragility, it runs on the sweat of people who treat words like sacred relics. Take the scribes. Or, more accurately, the scribe caste, a strangely specific subclass of Alexandria's intellectual underworld. They don't just copy things. They live in ink. Their fingers are permanently stained a soft violet brown, like they dipped them in shadow. Their robes always smell faintly of glue and candle wax. And they have strong opinions about serifs. You pass a side room where 2 young assistants are arguing over punctuation in an Aristotle scroll. "It's definitely a comma," one insists. "If it's a period, the whole sentence means goats can talk." "Oh, so you're the goat whisperer now?" the other shoots back. "This is what it's like here, petty, passionate, brilliant, and exhausting." You duck into the scribal break room. It's not labeled as such, but the smell of stale dates and stress gives it away. A scribe sits cross-legged on the floor, flipping through a scroll on lunar eclipses while eating dried chickpeas one at a time. He doesn't look up. He mutters, "If they blame this on us, I swear I'm joining the cult of Serapis and moving to Memphis." On one wall, a graffiti scratch reads, "I copied 400 lines today and all I got was this lousy hernia." Underneath it, someone has drawn an anatomically confused horse. This isn't just a job. It's a lifestyle. A weird, paper-based lifestyle. And sometimes, it leads to some creative liberties. See, not every scroll here is a perfect replica. Some scribes made corrections. Some inserted side notes that later scholars mistook for original text. There's even one infamous edition of Heraclitus where someone changed every instance of fire to soup, possibly as a prank, possibly as a metaphor gone wildly out of control. Historians still argue whether the scrolls we lost were pure or already warped by centuries of well-meaning edits. It's possible some of our most cherished ancient knowledge was already halfway to fanfiction before the flames ever touched it. You move down a hall you don't remember seeing before, low ceiling, flickering torches, shelves narrower, packed tighter. It smells like dust and ink and maybe something else. Something that makes your skin want to shiver. A door creaks open. Inside, a tiny chamber where 3 elderly scribes sit hunched over a scroll so old, it looks like it might disintegrate if anyone so much as breathes wrong. They glance up in eerie synchrony. "What do you want?" one croaks. You stammer something about smoke. The second scribe waves it off. The library's had 3 fires already this decade. This one'll fizzle too. The third just stares at you and murmurs, "Unless it doesn't." Reassuring. You back away and nearly knock over a rack of translations. The titles catch your eye. One's about using crushed emeralds to treat fevers. Another claims eating owls grants wisdom. You realize, suddenly, that not all scrolls are accurate, or even remotely sane. But accuracy wasn't always the point. The library wasn't trying to sort truth from fiction, it was hoarding everything. Just in case. Which means among the legitimate breakthroughs, early chemistry, surgical guides, celestial maps, there's also a lot of weird. Like a scroll from a Thracian priestess detailing how to trap moonlight in a bottle. Or an Assyrian manual on how to bake prophetic bread. Step 1. Sing to the dough. You turn a corner and walk right into a scroll cart. It jolts, tipping slightly, but you steady it before anything spills. The cart pusher glares at you. She's maybe 15, wearing sandals 2 sizes too big and a tunic stained with what you hope is ink. "Watch it," she says. "These are second copies of the Egyptian Book of the Dead. We're retranslating them to fix the part where it accidentally says feed your soul to crocodiles." You blink. Yeah, she adds, that caused problems. And then she's gone, shoving the cart into another corridor. You sit down for a moment beside a stone basin used for rinsing ink brushes. It's cracked, chipped, and filled with cloudy water. You splash a little on your face. It does not help. You're not sure what time it is. The windows are high and narrow here. Outside, the light seems dimmer, but maybe that's just you. You close your eyes. A sound. Not a whisper. Not a footstep. A crackle. Close. You stand. You look up. The ceiling has a faint orange glow now, like someone lit a torch in the attic and forgot about it. You smell ash. Real ash. The fire isn't just near. It's here. But still, the scribes don't run. One walks past you, cradling a bundle of scrolls like swaddled infants. His face is calm. Tired, maybe. But calm. You ask, aren't you leaving? He shrugs. Someone has to try. And then he walks toward the rising smoke. You don't know his name, but you'll remember him forever. You stand frozen for a beat, watching his silhouette vanish into the thickening haze, that calm defiance etched into the backs of your eyes. He's not fleeing the fire, he's walking into it, armed only with parchment and principle. It's both noble and utterly insane. But that's how things work here. The library is sacred. Some people would rather go down with it than let it die alone. Your legs start moving again, though you're not sure if it's courage or survival instinct or just the creeping unease of knowing the fire has crossed from theory into fact. The hallway's warmer now, noticeably. Not quite unbearable, but definitely the sort of temperature that makes you think, hey, maybe paper shouldn't be stacked to the ceiling in a building without fire exits. You head toward the central rotunda, what passes for the library's heart, and there, you see something else. Not flame. Not yet. People. Not panicked, not shouting. Just watching. A handful of philosophers are standing in the middle of the room, their eyes fixed upward. You follow their gaze. There's a black streak across the domed ceiling, like someone took a burning brush and scrawled a warning across the plaster. Wisps of smoke curl around the skylights, backlit like dying stars. Then one of them speaks. This is why we never trusted it. You turn to look. The speaker's old, bald except for tufts of white hair clinging to either side of his head like worried eyebrows. He's wearing a faded purple robe and holding a scroll loosely in one hand. His tone is bitter, almost satisfied. This place, he says, was never meant to last. Too many ideas in one place. Too many questions. Too many truths. Another scholar huffs. Oh, come off it, Baronites. You're just mad they rejected your treatise on celery-based immortality. A murmur of agreement. Laughter. Dry, thin laughter. You inch closer, ears open. There's more than smoke in the air now, there's tension. The scholars are splitting. Not physically yet, but ideologically. The fire is becoming a litmus test. And like all good academics, they are handling it by arguing. This was always dangerous, one says. All this knowledge in one place, do you know what that does to power? You're practically begging for someone to erase it. Another shakes their head. You think this is political? No. This is stupidity. Someone brewed tea too close to the lightning coil again, and now we're all going to pay for it. You blink. Oh. They know. A few of them turn toward you, as if they can smell your guilt. You shuffle awkwardly behind a column and pretend to study a plaque commemorating the library's first papyrus humidifier. One woman, tall and unsmiling, raises her voice over the growing mutters. This is what happens when knowledge is centralized. It makes people nervous, jealous, scared. You recognize her, Callista, head of the historical records section. Rumor has it she once rejected an entire donation of Phoenician poetry because the metaphors were too thirsty. Knowledge is power, she continues. And people fear what they don't control. There it is. The truth hiding in the smoke. You start to realize something dangerous. The fire might not have been just an accident. Historians still argue whether the destruction of the library was a single catastrophic event or a series of smaller, politically motivated purges. Did Julius Caesar's troops set it ablaze during his siege? Did Christian zealots later destroy what remained? Or was it internal, sabotage from those who feared what the library represented? You're not sure. But in this moment, with the ash curling at the corners of scrolls and philosophers muttering about forbidden knowledge, you start to see how a fire could be just the match, and fear, the fuel. You slip away from the group, careful to avoid eye contact with the man who still looks suspiciously like he'd enjoy pointing at you during an inquisition. The next corridor is empty, eerily so. You pass alcoves where scrolls lean precariously like drunken soldiers. Some shelves have been stripped bare. Someone's already started the triage. What gets saved? What gets left? You duck into a room labeled restricted texts. No one ever let you in here before. Inside, it's colder, stone walls, fewer lamps, scrolls wrapped in oilskin and sealed with wax. You touch one. The label says Chariot Schematics, Wind-Assisted, possibly Curse. Another reads Dialogues with Fire, an elemental treatise. You pull it out. It's in 3 languages. The last few pages are scorched. You sit, for just a moment, knees aching against the stone, and unroll the scroll in the half-light. The diagrams are crude but clear, an attempt to harness combustion for forward motion. Steam, pressure, acceleration. It's a recipe for progress. And it's about to go up in flames. You hear footsteps. You roll the scroll and hide it under your tunic, because if nothing else, your sleep-deprived brain has decided this one is important. You don't even know why. Maybe you're wrong. Maybe it's just notes for an overly dramatic stage play. But maybe, just maybe, it's the future. The footsteps pass. You exhale. You stand. You glance back once. The fire isn't here yet, but it's coming. And knowledge? Knowledge is starting to realize it has enemies. You step back into the corridor, heart hammering, the hidden scroll pressed beneath your tunic like a secret you haven't earned. The hallway feels narrower now, as if the building itself is exhaling its last few calm breaths. You pass a torch mounted too close to a hanging tapestry and have the sudden, irrational urge to yank it down before it joins the growing list of regrets. You need to get out, but you also can't help it, you're still trying to piece it together. How did a cup of tea cause this? So you retrace your steps, mentally, at first, then physically. Back toward the west wing. Back toward the place where you first smelled the smoke. And sure enough, by the time you reach that cursed room, the door's ajar. You push it open. The scholar is still there. Somehow. He's coughing, hair wild, face smudged with ash, and he's surrounded by a chaos of melted coils and blackened notes. But he's not running. No, he's scribbling. Still, frantically. You step in, barely able to breathe. What was in that tea? You ask. He looks up with the wide-eyed pride of someone who has no idea how dangerous he is. Not tea, he wheezes. An herbal conductor. Designed to enhance conductivity in my atmospheric magnetism coil. I was trying to warm the room without fire. Fire is primitive. He gestures dramatically to the corner, where the fire is now licking up the wall like it just read that. You glance at his desk. There's a shattered jar labeled Infused Camellia plus Lotus plus Broomroot. You blink. Broomroot? That's flammable. He shrugs. Only if activated with heat and agitation. Which I did. On purpose. You stare. He sips something from a scorched cup. Tasted terrible. But very effective. You cough again, because the smoke is thickening. You have to get out. He waves a soot-covered hand. No. I need to finish this. You don't understand, this research could redefine heating methods across the entire Mediterranean basin. You glance at the growing flame beside the bookshelf. That's not going to matter if you and all your notes are charcoal. He pauses. Point taken. He pulls a heavy satchel from beneath the table, shoves in a handful of scrolls, most of them still smoking, and finally stands. You take one last look at the device that started it all. Twisted copper coils, the remains of a ceramic bowl, and what looks like a singed sock someone definitely shouldn't have been using as insulation. As you both exit, the fire gives a satisfied crack, like it knows it's won that round. The hallway outside is thicker with smoke now, and the heat is unmistakable. You hear running feet in the distance, librarians, maybe, or guards. Or looters. Or all three. Because while some are trying to save the library, others are seeing opportunity. You round a corner and nearly collide with a girl holding 4 scrolls under each arm. Her eyes go wide. She looks about 12. Maybe younger. She bolts before you can say a word, disappearing down the hall like a rumor. Salvagers, the scholar mutters beside you. It's begun. He's right. The fire is just the spark. What's coming now is the unraveling. Because as soon as people realize there's no putting this out, they're going to choose. Do they stay and burn? Do they run and save what they can? Or do they take? You duck into a storage room that smells like dried ink and disappointment. It's lined with tall, unlabeled cabinets, rare, valuable, volatile. The good stuff. A few are already open. Empty. Inside, you spot a scroll resting in a glass case, the script oddly familiar, Hebrew overlaid with Greek commentary. You read a single line, "What is remembered lives longer than what is recorded." You don't know who wrote it, but you get the feeling they'd hate today. As you turn to leave, a parchment flutters down from a shelf above you. It's blank, except for one scribbled note in the corner. "Put this somewhere safe." You wish you knew where that was. Back in the hallway, someone screams. Not pain, rage. You follow the sound around a corner and find two scholars wrestling over a scroll. One yells, "It's mine." The other shouts, "It belongs to the world." You don't stay to find out who wins. The fire might be the immediate threat, but the panic is beginning to outpace it. Already, smoke is pooling along the ceiling like a tide ready to flip. You and the scholar make it to a stairwell. The air is clearer here, for now. You start to descend. "I never meant for this," he says quietly. You glance over. "For what?" He gestures vaguely at the chaos. "The fire. The unraveling. I just wanted to make a heating device." You sigh. Using experimental plant chemistry and a prototype coil in a room filled with dry scrolls. He doesn't respond. You're halfway down when you hear a new sound. Singing. You pause. It's coming from below. You round the final turn of the stairwell and find three young scribes, sitting in a ring, singing Thoth, the Egyptian god of wisdom. Their voices are soft, steady. They hold hands, scrolls piled neatly beside them. It's as if they've chosen to stay, not out of fear, but defiance. One of them looks up at you and smiles. "We're copying the scrolls we remember," she says. You blink. "From memory?" She nods. "We all picked one to preserve. No matter what happens." You glance at the scroll under your tunic. Maybe that's the answer. Not saving everything. Just enough. Just one. You leave them there, those three quiet scribes singing to Thoth, as you and the accidental arsonist descend into the lower west wing. The walls here are thicker, the scrolls older, the air more stubborn about giving up its secrets. This is where the first flicker likely grew teeth. You can feel it, more than heat, more than smoke. It's the sense that something sacred has already been breached. The hallway is dim. The torches on the wall have either gone out or been removed. You pass cracked tile mosaics, fragments of constellations and kings, crumbling with each footfall. Then you smell it. Not just the smoke you've been half-drenched in all afternoon, but that deeper, terrifying scent of combustion left alone too long. It's thick. It's sweet. It's the library's death breath curling along the stone. You round a bend and the glow hits you like a blow. A storage vault stands wide open, and fire is inside it. No, hungry inside it. Scrolls twist in midair, flames running up them like frightened cats. Papyrus disintegrates mid-sentence. Words written by minds 2,000 years dead vanish in seconds, becoming curls of smoke no one alive will ever read again. The fire's not fast, yet, but it's deliberate, like it knows it has time. Like it's savoring this. You and the scholar both freeze. You can't speak. What would you even say? Oops. Sorry? Call the water brigade? There is no water brigade. There's a clay urn and a mop bucket in the hallway. That's about it. The scholar whispers, "We could try to." You don't let him finish. You know the answer. It's too late for this room. And here's the thing about fire in a library. It doesn't need to rage to destroy everything. It only needs to spread quietly. Slowly. Scroll by scroll. Historians still argue whether a single fire ever destroyed the entire library, or if it was chipped away piece by piece, first by Caesar's siege, then by zealots, then by caretakers who stopped caring. But standing here, watching centuries crumble like burnt pastry, you understand how it could have been just one ember. One cup. One man with an idea and a poor grasp of thermodynamics. You back away slowly. The fire hisses. And then, because the universe has a sense of drama, a scroll rack collapses. It slams into the floor with a shuddering crack, flinging embers like confetti. You and the scholar run. Now it's not a flicker. Now it's a chase. You sprint down the corridor, lungs burning, heart punching your ribs, and behind you comes the dull roar of something finding momentum. The flames have slipped their leash. No longer slow. No longer savoring. Now they want to devour. You burst into a side hall, slam the door shut behind you, and lean against it, wheezing. The scholar slides down beside you, clutching his satchel. His voice is hoarse. That escalated. You nod. Like a well-funded debate club. You take stock. You're in what was once a climate-controlled vault for delicate materials, scrolls written in ink so fine it fades in sunlight, stories written on vellum stretched from strange desert beasts. Some of it's already been removed. Other scrolls lie scattered, as if someone tried to save them but got pulled away halfway through. You crouch beside one. The script is delicate, Aramaic, maybe. A myth? A recipe? A prophecy? It doesn't matter now. You start gathering what you can. The scholar helps, awkwardly. You can tell he's not used to lifting anything heavier than an ego. You find a cloth satchel, shove in 6 scrolls that look important. Okay, they're probably just tax records or dating advice, but still, and sling it over your shoulder. And that's when you see it. Smoke curling under the door. The fire's not chasing you anymore. It's hurting you. You push forward into another room, a map archive. Charcoal sketches of the known world stretch across wide sheets of papyrus pinned to the walls. You glance at one as you pass, a drawing of India where the Ganges is labeled river that sings to the moon. Another shows Britain as a monster-shaped island called Albion's Jaw. You run past them. You don't have time to appreciate the cartographic creativity of people who thought thunder was the sound of God's moving furniture. At the far end of the archive, you find a hidden stairwell, spiraling, narrow, dark. You take it without thinking. Down. Down. Each step a drumbeat. At the bottom, silence. You find yourself in a long, windowless chamber. There are no scrolls here. Just statues. Stone. Immense. Watching. You stumbled into the Hall of Reason, a mostly ceremonial space, rarely used, but always maintained. It was built when the library was young, meant to remind scholars that knowledge was supposed to serve people, not rule them. Each statue represents a different discipline: mathematics, astronomy, poetry, medicine, philosophy. They stare down at you now, through smoke-hazed silence, like disappointed grandparents. The scholar steps forward, breath ragged. Do you think any of it survives? You don't answer. Because in that moment, you aren't thinking about survival. You're thinking about how it started. Not with flames. Not even with tea. But with the idea that maybe the world's knowledge could live in one place. That humans could gather everything we'd ever learned and keep it safe. It was a noble dream. It was also incredibly flammable. You don't stay long in the Hall of Reason. Not because it's not beautiful, it is, in that stern, echoing, you will feel small kind of way, but because the fire is coming, and stone statues don't offer much shelter when papyrus burns like dry leaves in a lightning storm. You press on through a back passage that smells faintly of mildew and forgotten gods. The scholar follows behind you, still muttering about heat conductivity and combustion angles, as if understanding the fire's geometry will make it less fatal. You step out into a corridor that should be familiar, but now looks warped. Smoke has thickened. Not just the thin, ghostly wisps you saw before. Now it's real. Clinging. Heavy. You cough and pull your tunic over your mouth, eyes stinging. And then you hear it, the unmistakable crackle of flame not far off. Somewhere ahead, with splinters. A faint scream follows. Not long. Not close. You move faster. You pass a reading room, empty now, save for scrolls scattered across the floor and a lamp that's tipped, still sputtering, oil spilled in a glistening trail that's dangerously close to the wall. The moment you're through the doorway, a sound snaps behind you, woof, and light flares bright. The lamp found its way home. You don't look back. You reach the outer scroll rotunda, once a peaceful spot, a favorite of poets, with its open lattice ceiling and potted fig trees. Now, it's a funnel of heat. The dome above holds the smoke like a bowl, and you realize, this place is a trap. Still, you're not alone. A dozen people are here. Some you recognize, historians, junior scribes, the guy who once yelled at you for sneezing near a love poem. They're gathered around a central stack of scrolls, and they're moving fast. One calls out titles, another shouts destinations, to the apothecaries. To the philosopher's wing. Get the military treaties out. They're forming a bucket brigade of knowledge. Only instead of water, they're passing wisdom. And here's the strange part, they're calm. Panicked, yes. Sweaty, yes. But focus. As if the fire has given them clarity. You step forward. What can I do? A woman, her face streaked with soot and fierce determination, shoves a scroll bundle into your arms. East storage. Hidden alcove behind the tax ledgers. Stuff them in and shut the stone slab. You nod and bolt, scholar on your heels. You follow directions, counting niches, jumping over a toppled bench. The fire hasn't reached this wing yet, but it will. You find the alcove. It's a shallow nook behind a faded tablet labeled Imports, Wool and More Wool. You shove the scrolls in, heart pounding. Pull the slab close. It seals with a dusty thunk. It's not perfect, but it's stone. Fire's greatest enemy. Backtracking, you're hit again by the sheer madness of it all. How many are doing this? How many scrolls are being stuffed into urns, shoved behind walls, hidden beneath floorboards, hoping, praying, gambling on the idea that maybe, someday, someone will find them again? Historians still argue whether anything truly was saved. There are rumors, of course, lost scrolls discovered in desert caves, fragments hidden inside mummy wrappings, pages turned into amulets, charms, padding and sandals. But nothing definitive. No miracle vault. No backup drive. Back in the rotunda, the scroll line falters. A section of roof gives way. It's not dramatic. It's worse. A soft whump, then a chain of cracking beams, and finally a slow, elegant collapse, like a paper fan folding shut. Flames pour through the opening. People scream. Not in pain. In despair. A man grabs a bundle and runs. A woman pulls another from his hands. Two scholars argue over whether to save a scroll on planetary motion or one on medicinal beetles. You don't wait. You grab the scholar's arm. We need to go. He hesitates. Looks back. There's still more. There will always be more, you say. He doesn't answer, but he follows. You push through a side door and find yourself in a narrow passage, an old one, clearly in use. The walls are covered in ancient graffiti, scratched in dozens of languages, prayers, jokes, short poems, crude drawings of donkeys in compromising positions. You pause at one that simply reads, "If you find this after the fire, I loved you." You can't tell if it's a romantic message or a metaphor for all of humanity. Either way, it works. You emerge in the lower courtyard, the same one where this all began. The brass teapot is still there. It's toppled, the lid off, the dregs cooling in the shadow of a scorched bench. The smell of cinnamon and carbon floats through the air. The fire's creeping this way now, licking up the edges of the architecture like it's retracing its steps. You look up. The sun is low. The city beyond the library's walls continues to breathe and bicker and barter, mostly unaware that its brain is dissolving. You take one last breath of this place. One last smell of smoke and scrolls. One last glimpse of everything that was. Then you run. You don't look back. Not right away. You run, feet pounding stone, breath burning, tunic clinging to your ribs with sweat and soot. The scholar follows close behind, clutching his scrolls like they're the only thing keeping his lungs going. You burst out of the library's shadow, into the street, into Alexandria's chaotic sprawl of shouting merchants, braying animals, and people who, quite frankly, haven't noticed that their city's crown jewel is currently smoldering like a badly managed barbecue. But then the wind shifts. And everything changes. The smoke, that sluggish black ribbon that had mostly curled upward till now, suddenly swings wide over the rooftops. A merchant sneezes. A street performer pauses mid-pose. A camel makes an unsettled sound, like someone just whispered that its stable is flammable. You turn. And now you look. The library is burning. Not just a room. Not just a wing. The whole colossus is aglow, a flickering funeral pyre etched against the orange bruises of the evening sky. Flames leap from window to window. Scrolls explode into ash midair, caught in the heat plumes. Pillars crack. Roof tiles hiss as they collapse into infernos below. The crowd gasps as one. It's beautiful. And horrifying. You feel it in your chest, not just fear, but grief. Like the wind has reached in and scooped something out of your lungs that won't grow back. The scholar beside you falls to his knees, staring. No, he murmurs. No, no, no. Someone near you says, it can't all be gone. Another voice answers, maybe it should be. You turn and see a man with a heavy beard and sharper eyes. He wears a senator's sash. He's standing too calmly, too dry. You narrow your eyes. You knew. He tilts his head. I suspected. You wait. He continues, voice low. When knowledge becomes dangerous to rulers, rulers become dangerous to knowledge. You're about to respond when someone else barrels into the street, panting. It's spreading, she shouts. The garden archives, the Ptolemaic wing, it's gone wild. They can't stop it. Behind her, more people flood from the library, guards, scribes, scholars. Some carry scrolls. Most carry nothing but ash-stained clothes and eyes full of defeat. And in that moment, Alexandria forgets how to breathe. Because it's not just a building going up in flames. It's a civilization's self-image. A belief that ideas could be tamed, stored, and called upon like servants. You sit down. Right there, on the edge of the pavement, as scroll ash falls like soft gray snow. And you start to remember. Not the fire. Not the scholar's coil. But what you read. What you saw. Because the truth is, even if the library dies, not everything is lost. Some of it got out. You saw people hide things, run with things, chant things aloud like spells to be preserved in the air. You saw a girl with scrolls under each arm, a scribe whispering Herodotus to herself, a kid muttering math theorems in a stairwell like he was afraid forgetting them would kill him. And you? You got something too. The scroll under your tunic. The one with the diagrams. You haven't read it in full, but you will. Someday. Maybe it's a miracle machine. Maybe it's just a laundry list. But it's something. Someone crouches beside you. It's the girl from earlier, the one who told you she was copying scrolls from memory. She has ink on her hands, and her voice is steady. Did you save anything? You nod. A few. She doesn't ask what. Instead, she sits next to you and opens her own bundle, 6 scrolls, wrapped tight in oiled cloth. She sets them on the ground gently, as if they're small birds. What now? You ask her. She shrugs. We tell people. We remember what we can. And we don't let them forget. You look around. People are starting to do just that. Clusters forming. Scrolls being unwrapped. Not to read, but to share. People reciting things aloud. Chanting formulas. Quoting plays. Joking through tears. One group is acting out a lost Euripides tragedy, badly. Another is drawing maps from memory on the dirt with sticks. Even the scholar who started it all has begun muttering about his heating coil again, sketching it into the sand like he needs to see it one more time before someone turns it into a legend. You smile, despite yourself. Historians still argue whether the library's destruction was the end of an era or the seed of a new one. Whether its burning marked the death of knowledge, or simply its escape. You stand up. The library is gone. But the people who are the library, they're still here. And some of them are talking. You breathe in. Smoke. Cinnamon. Salt. And something else. Possibility. The ash settles slowly, lazily, like it's trying to avoid responsibility. It floats down onto the harbor, onto the rooftops, into clay pots and sandals, into tea that's gone cold. And somewhere in that drifting gray haze, a rumor rises, low at first, barely louder than the crackle of dying flame. They say Caesar did it. You blink. You turn toward the voice. A boy, maybe 14, is repeating the words he just heard from someone who heard it from someone who saw a Roman legionnaire sharpening a sword and looking shifty. Typical Alexandria. Within minutes, the idea spreads through the crowd like wildfire of its own. Caesar burned it. Did you hear? It was Caesar. That bastard lit the docks on fire and it jumped to the library. You sigh. Here we go. The scholar beside you frowns. It doesn't even make sense. He was trying to save the city. Why would he? You cut him off with a wave. Truth doesn't travel as fast as gossip. And gossip just sprinted past with its hair on fire. You remember the history, or, at least, the half-melted version of it. Decades before today's blaze, Julius Caesar did indeed besiege Alexandria, caught in the messy politics of Egyptian succession and one very dramatic affair with Cleopatra. At some point, his ships were torched in the harbor, and the fire spread inland. Did it reach the library? Historians still argue. Some sources say yes, that Caesar's fire devoured thousands of scrolls. Others claim it missed the main collection entirely, only damaging warehouse storage nearby. Then there are the skeptics who say the whole story was invented centuries later by writers looking for a satisfying villain. But here's the thing, fire doesn't care about origin stories. The public? They want a face. A name. A Roman profile to blame. And Caesar's face is conveniently stamped on half their coins. You move through the streets, dodging buckets, crates, and people still shouting theories. Someone insists the fire was divine punishment for storing pagan magic too close to Jewish prophecy. Another blames Ptolemaic nepotism. One man is certain the blaze started because two scribes got into a fistfight over the correct way to interpret dreams about owls. You almost believe him. That actually sounds plausible. You cross a side alley and stop short. There's a wall, freshly painted. Or rather, freshly defaced. In large black letters. Rome burns our minds. Beneath it, someone else has added, Caesar fears ideas. You glance around. The crowd is growing angrier. You see torches, actual torches now, not metaphorical ones. You see the glint of swords. You see a few cloaked figures slipping into corners they don't belong in. You see a riot forming, one rumor at a time. You sigh again. Because nothing inspires civil unrest quite like watching your entire intellectual heritage collapse into a pile of poetic embers. And because you know, it wasn't Caesar. Not this time. Maybe it was never Caesar. Maybe the truth is Messier. But try telling that to the people gathering in front of the local Roman garrison with fists raised and scroll fragments in their hands like protest signs. You back away. The scholar joins you. This is bad. You nod. Historically accurate, though. The street bends. You follow it toward the quieter edge of the city, where embassies sit behind tall hedges and noble estates glow with lamps made of imported glass. It's calmer here. Less ash. More denial. But even here, you hear the echoes. A guard at a checkpoint leans in to whisper to a merchant, "Did you hear about the fire?" They say Caesar said it. A woman tells her servant, "My brother saw Romans with torches." A child sings a skipping rhyme. First the harbor, then the sky, Caesar lit it, scrolls must die. You pause. That last one was disturbingly catchy. By the time you reach the far plaza, the narrative is fully born. The library didn't burn because of a faulty coil, or bad tea, or negligence. No. It burned because Julius Caesar, conqueror of Gaul, lover of Cleopatra, destroyer of thought, set it ablaze. You sit on the edge of a fountain. The water's warm. Not from fire, but from sun and time and the sheer inertia of Alexandria. Around you, the city keeps moving, slightly askew, like a painting that's shifted in its frame. The scholar paces nearby. But it's not true. No, you agree. But they'll believe it. Yep. He stops. And what does that mean? You look up at the sky, now streaked with smoke that blurs the first stars. It means, you say, that sometimes stories survive better than facts. And Alexandria, tonight, is choosing a story. You don't blame them. Stories are warm, memorable, blamable. Caesar is far away, possibly already dead depending on when you set this version of the tale. But a name? A name gives grief structure. You lie back on the fountain's edge, the stone still sun-warmed beneath your spine. The library is gone, but a new myth is rising from the ashes. You lie there, staring at the smoky twilight sky, half hoping it'll offer some kind of cosmic apology for what just happened. Spoiler, it doesn't. A seagull squawks overhead and drops something unspeakable onto a marble statue of the goddess Isis. You take that as a no. The scholar finally sits beside you, face pale with heat and disbelief. He's holding the half-burned satchel of scrolls on his lap like it might still whisper ideas to him. After a moment, he says, "Do you think we'll ever really know?" You raise an eyebrow. "Know what?" "What happened?" he murmurs. "Who truly started the fire?" "Why?" That question hangs in the air like a wordless poem. One that doesn't rhyme and probably ends in a footnote. Because the truth is, and you've known this all day, no one really knows. Some say Julius Caesar's siege torched the docks and the fire spread to the library accidentally. Others blame later Christian zealots, who allegedly destroyed scrolls they considered pagan filth. Still others point fingers at Coptic monks during a particularly enthusiastic cleansing of heretical knowledge. And then there are those who say the Muslims, under Caliph Omar, burned what was left centuries later. One famous tale claims Omar declared, "If the books agree with the Quran, they're unnecessary. If they disagree, they're dangerous. Either way, burn them." But here's the catch. None of these stories match each other. Not perfectly, not chronologically, and not one of them has solid, uncontested proof. Historians still argue whether the library fell all at once or in pieces, chipped away by apathy, by imperial politics, by budget cuts, by people who thought they were doing the right thing. Some even believe the Great Fire is more myth than reality, that we've folded a century of slow erosion into a single poetic tragedy because it's easier to mourn something dramatic. Because drama, like fire, spreads quickly. You sit up, dusting ash from your tunic. What if it wasn't anyone, you offer? What if it just happened? The scholar stares at you. No, he says. People don't want that. They want villains. Not entropy. He's not wrong. You wander through the plaza, past walls where graffiti is already evolving into protest slogans. Someone's drawn Caesar with goat horns. Someone else crossed it out and wrote it was the priests. A third simply added, knowledge dies in silence. It's chaos. Passionate chaos. And you're starting to see it clearly now. This isn't just about what burned. It's about why people think it burned. Because in their eyes, the library isn't just a building, it's a symbol of what Alexandria thought it was. A place of reason, of light, of control. And nothing shatters a self-image like ash. You turn down a quieter street, trying to clear your thoughts. Then you notice the door. It's half open, crooked on its hinges. A little garden shop, closed for the evening. The front's been looted, half-heartedly. A few pots tipped. A reed mat torn. But nothing major. Except for what's behind the counter. You step inside cautiously. There, in a corner of the floor, someone set up a makeshift altar. A single scroll lies in the center, resting on a cushion of pressed herbs. It's burned around the edges but mostly intact. The script is unfamiliar, maybe Syriac, and written in careful, precise strokes. You kneel, instinctively. A woman steps from the shadows, old and stooped but bright-eyed. She says nothing, just watches you. Is it yours? You ask. She nods once. It's all I saved. What is it? A prayer, she says. And a cure for bronchitis. You stare at her. She shrugs. Multifunctional. She walks past you, straightens the torn mat, then returns to her place beside the scroll. We can't save it all, she says softly. So we save what we can hold. What we can carry. What we can teach. You think of the scribe chanting to Thoth. The girl reciting maps in the dirt. The boy muttering formulas. The actors butchering Euripides in the street. And you realize, the library isn't just paper and stone. It's in people now. It has to be. You rise. Bow slightly. The woman nods again and disappears into the shadows. You step back outside. The sun is fully down now. The air cooler. The smoke a whisper instead of a shout. And you start walking again. Not because you know where you're going, but because something in you understands the path won't stay lit for long. You follow the winding street until the lamps thin out and the city becomes less Alexandria and more whispers, walls grown too quiet, corners thick with shadow, doors that creak even when no one touches them. You're not sure what draws you here, except a hunch, or maybe that itch you get when you know a secret's about to surface. And then, there it is. A small archway carved into a hillside, half obscured by ivy and indecision. No one's guarding it. No plaque. Just a dark mouth in the earth that hums softly with the unmistakable sound of air over parchment. You step closer. It's colder here. You run your fingers along the edge of the arch. The stone's smoother than it should be. Worn. Used. You glance over your shoulder, no one's watching, then duck inside. The passage slopes downward in a lazy spiral. Your footsteps echo against the stone, and the temperature drops with every step, like the earth is pulling you into a forgotten dream. And then you smell it. Scrolls. Old ones. But not burnt. You enter a small chamber lit by a single oil lamp hanging from the ceiling by a chain. And there they are, rows of shelves. Neatly arranged. Quiet. Undisturbed. A sister library. You blink. No way. But yes. Absolutely yes. Historians have long debated whether there were multiple libraries in Alexandria, lesser branches, backups, or private collections maintained by obsessive scribes or paranoid scholars. Some claim there was a second library at the Serapeum, a temple to Serapis, and that it survived long after the main library fell. Others insist that's a myth, or a confusion of sources. Still others believe this second library was simply the private stash of someone too smart, or too selfish, to trust the central system. Now, standing here, you realize, myth or not, this one's real. And it's still intact. Mostly. Dust floats thick in the air, but the scrolls are clean. Tended to. Maybe not recently, but lovingly. No labels, no flashy murals, just rows of parchment bound with twine, stored in clay cylinders or simple wooden boxes. Someone built this for survival. And then someone left it behind. You reach for a scroll at random. Unwrap it slowly. The handwriting is tiny but legible. Aristarchus of Samos, arguing that the earth revolves around the sun. You whistle softly. That's centuries ahead of its time. You remember the main library having a battered copy. This version looks pristine. You open another. Poetry from an Indian mystic, translated by a bored Athenian with excellent handwriting and deeply questionable footnotes. Another scroll is a political satire disguised as a wine-making manual. Clever. You grin. Whoever curated this collection had taste. A little chaos. A little genius. But here's the catch, no one's here. Not now. Not guarding it. Not preserving it. You walk further into the vault. Shelves shift to cabinets. Cabinets give way to drawers. You open one and find metal plates etched with diagrams. Engineering, you think. Maybe siege equipment. Maybe playgrounds. Hard to say with ancient Greek. Then, in the far back corner, you find it. A cot. Dusty. Undisturbed. A candle stub. An empty cup. Someone lived here. A hermit librarian? A rogue scholar? You have no idea. But you can feel them still. The presence. The intent. This wasn't just storage. This was sanctuary. Someone saved what they could and disappeared, trusting the stone and silence to do the rest. And now, for the first time all day, you feel something break through the grief. Hope. It's not everything. It's not even most things. But it's something. And maybe that's enough. You gather a few scrolls, just to examine. Not to take. You sit on the floor and begin reading, the lamp flickering gently above your head. Outside, the world is still mourning. Ash is still falling. But down here, there's a calmness that feels almost sacred. After an hour, maybe two, you stand. You can't carry all of this. You wouldn't dare. But you can tell others. Bring someone back. Preserve what remains. As you climb the stairs, you make a mental list. Not of scrolls. Of people. The girl with the ink-stained hands. The trio chanting the Thoth. The scholar who never let go of his terrible tea coil. And you. You, who stumbled into all of this by accident but now hold a piece of something ancient and unfinished. You step back into the night. And this time, the smoke isn't all you smell. There's jasmine in the air. And beneath it, possibility. The air hits you like a second fire when you leave the vault, warm, acrid, alive with noise. Alexandria hasn't quieted. If anything, it's louder now, not from celebration or panic, but the collision of both. You'd think a burning library would silence a city. Instead, it's lit up in another way. You step back into the chaos, scroll dust still clinging to your fingers, eyes adjusted to the glow of hidden things. The streets hum with energy, not organized, not helpful, just the loud kind. The kind that fills a silence too big to bear. Then you see them. Two figures slipping into a side alley, robes tied around their bodies, scrolls peeking out from under their arms. Not carried gently. Clutched. You follow. Because of course you do. The alley smells like wet stone and old citrus. You duck past hanging laundry, sidestep a cat who does not care what historical treasures are being stolen today, and watch the two figures hand off the scrolls to a third person, hooded, with a mule waiting nearby. There's no shouting. No haggling. Just swift movement and quiet urgency. Black market salvagers. They don't wear badges, but you can spot them easily now. They move differently than the mourners. Less panic. More profit. They're not saving scrolls for posterity, they're collecting rare knowledge to sell. Philosophical treatises? Sure. Astrological charts? Always popular. Lost medical texts? Worth more than gold, especially if they promise to cure baldness or make soup more exciting. You slip closer, crouching behind a broken crate of figs. One of the salvagers laughs quietly and says, "This one's from the medical annex." Says something about steam baths and scorpion venom. The hooded buyer takes it without blinking. Eastern collectors will fight over it. You exhale, quietly. Of course, knowledge is power, but power is also currency. And right now, Alexandria is shedding scrolls faster than cats shed dignity. You remember hearing whispers about this side of the city even before the fire. That there were collectors, some noble, some laughably not, willing to buy pieces of the library from underpaid scribes and disillusioned assistants. At the time, you thought it was just gossip. Conspiracy theory. The kind of thing scholars say after too many hours breathing in powdered ink. But now, you've seen it. It's real. And it's fast. The salvagers finish their exchange. Two disappear into the shadows, and the buyer hoists the satchel of scrolls onto the mule. You stay crouched, heartbeat sharp. You should stop them. You should say something. But what? This knowledge belongs to the world? Cute. But meaningless. They're not here for the world. They're here for gold. You let them pass. Not because you agree, but because you understand. Some scrolls will survive this fire only because someone with the right bribe pulled them into the night. It's grotesque. But maybe it's also necessary? Historians still argue whether salvagers helped preserve fragments of the library or just scattered them across centuries of shady transactions. Some claim key texts in modern collections can be traced back to these black market rescues. Others insist that's just romanticism layered over theft. You slip out of the alley and into the main road again. And now you see them everywhere. Not just mourners. Not just looters. But salvagers. A woman with scrolls hidden beneath a false fruit cart. A boy in temple robes pretending to deliver prayers while smuggling diagrams of catapults. A pair of cloaked figures arguing about whether a scroll is real or forged, based entirely on how expensive the ink smells. It's an entire second layer of the city, one Alexandria never wanted to admit existed. And right now, they're winning. You spot one scroll on the ground, dropped or discarded. You pick it up. It's torn, the bottom edge charred. The title still reads clearly, Treatise on Hydraulic Pressure and Steam Flow. You frown. Steam. You pull the other scroll, the one still under your tunic, and compare the diagrams. Not identical, but similar. You sit on the edge of a low wall and study them side by side. The torn scroll describes machines that push water using heat and sealed valves. The one you saved? More advanced. It builds on the first. Innovates. Adds complexity. It's not just theory. It's evolution. And it's happening across scrolls. Across time. You glance up. The salvagers are gone now, off into the night. But something inside you has shifted. You always thought knowledge lived in scrolls. But now you see it lives between them. In the gaps. In the connections. In the continuity. Which means, if even a few survive, if even scraps remain, someone, someday, might stitch them back together. Not the whole library, but its soul. That's enough to stand. You hold both scrolls gently, like one wrong breath might dissolve them into history's forgotten footnotes. The burnt edges whisper as you roll them up, cautiously, reverently, and tuck them back under your tunic. You can't explain it fully, not yet, but something inside you knows, these are more than just salvage. They're evidence. Of what? Not just ancient engineering, not just an idea too smart for its century. No. They're evidence that someone, once, almost figured it all out. You start walking again, the city still thick with the sound of arguing historians, impromptu street lectures, and at least one very confused donkey. You pass a cart where a crowd is gathered around a man loudly declaring, "I held it in my own hands." The lost scroll of Heron, he described a machine that boiled water to move things. You could make doors open without touching them. The gods themselves feared it. You pause. You know the name, Heron of Alexandria. A polymath. An inventor. And possibly a time traveler if half these rumors are true. He's credited with building the world's first steam-powered device, an eolipile. A hollow sphere mounted on a pair of tubes, spinning from jets of steam. A toy, they said. A novelty. But maybe not. You push through the crowd, eyes scanning. The scroll he holds? A fake, clearly. The ink is too fresh, and it says property of Cleo's Beach Library in the corner. Still, the story sparks something in you. Because what if it wasn't just toys? What if someone in the library's labyrinth of wisdom stumbled onto something more? What if they dreamed a little bigger? You remember the scroll from earlier, the one nearly lost in the West Wing blaze. It had diagrams too. Boilers. Pistons. A network of levers and valves that, to your eyes, looked suspiciously like a primitive engine. But it wasn't complete. Neither is the one you just found. Together, though, you begin to wonder, what if Alexandria had been just one generation away from the Industrial Revolution? Historians still argue whether such machines were possible. Some say the ancients lacked the materials, the mindset, the sheer guts to use steam for anything but temple tricks and bathtubs. Others point to whispers and scattered texts, devices that mimicked birdsong, doors that open with water pressure, automatic wine dispensers. Always dismissed as toys. But were they? Or were they test runs? You shake your head, trying not to spiral. You've already inhaled a lot of smoke and possibly some powdered donkey dung. Clarity is not guaranteed. Still, your fingers itch. Not to burn. To build. You need someone who understands mechanics. You glance around. No one nearby seems especially qualified. A man is reciting Homer to a goat. A woman is crying into a scroll labeled on proper grain storage. Then, out of the dusk, a voice. I saw you at the vault. You turn. It's the ink-fingered girl, the one who was copying from memory, the one who somehow always shows up when things start to matter. She steps forward, cradling something wrapped in linen. I found this, she says. She unwraps it. Another scroll. Unburned. Rough script, fewer diagrams. But as you look closer, your heart jumps. It's not instructions. It's commentary. Someone read the steam scroll you have. They wrote about it. They tried to expand on it. Explain it. There's a sketch, crude but familiar, of a steam loop, with the word pressure loopback scrawled beside it in Greek. You meet her eyes. You start, but she shakes her head. No. Not us. Not yet. She gently rolls it up and hands it to you anyway. But someone. One day. You nod. And in that quiet, something cracks in your chest, not from pain, but relief. Because you were starting to believe all of it was lost. And now you see it isn't. Not entirely. Not even mostly. Just scattered. Hidden. Waiting. You walk together through the side alleys, the library's embers painting a faint glow on the walls behind you. In the distance, someone shouts about rebuilding. Another argues that knowledge should stay decentralized. Somewhere else, a couple has started a scroll lending booth using fruit baskets and a lot of optimism. But you don't stop. You're already thinking ahead. Not centuries, just tomorrow. Where can you take these scrolls? Who else is quietly hoarding remnants? Can they be pieced together, translated, taught? And, more than anything, can they still change the world? The girl beside you murmurs something under her breath. You turn. What was that? She smiles. I said, sometimes, the scroll that gets away is the one that saves everything. You chuckle. You're not sure if it's true. But it sounds like the kind of story someone might still be telling, 2,000 years from now. You walk for a while in silence, the girl's words echoing in your head. The scroll that gets away is the one that saves everything. It's the kind of phrase that sticks, the kind that'll probably get misquoted by future historians and painted in gold leaf across some dramatic archway. But right now, it's just the two of you, treading through the outer districts of a city that no longer feels like itself. You reach a rise in the road, a gentle slope with a view of the city's core and what's left of the library. And what's left is not much. The skyline has changed. The great domes, once glowing in the Mediterranean sun, are black silhouettes now, jagged and collapsing inward. Flames have finally begun to shrink, replaced by plumes of smoke that curl like dying thoughts into the night sky. You can almost see where each wing used to be. The botanical annex. The astronomy tower. The scroll dome with its ridiculous bronze owl on top. All gone. You sit on a crumbling bench, knees aching, tunic stiff with soot. The girl sits beside you, knees pulled to her chest. No words. Just breathing. Behind you, Alexandria is beginning to murmur again. Not in the frantic, fire-fed panic from earlier, but something softer. Resigned. Mourning. You hear footsteps. Then more. Soon, people gather around the slope, others like you. Scroll savers. Scribes. Bystanders. Some are bandaged. Some are crying. Some still clutch burnt fragments as if refusing to accept the loss until the very ink fades from their fingers. One man, gray-haired, bloody cheek, missing a sandal, steps to the center of the crowd. He lifts a charred board in the air. "This is what's left," he says. The crowd hushes. He holds up the board like an offering. This was the catalog of Ptolemy's first translations. Only one corner remains. You squint. There it is, Hathalis. A few titles. A faint ink smear that might be a name. He places it gently on the ground. A woman steps forward next. She holds up a brass cylinder. "Medical tools," she says. "I found them under the east wing stairs." The scroll describing them is gone, but the tools are still here. More come. A boy presents a clay tablet. A girl, a singed map. A father, carrying his daughter, recites a poem she memorized the morning before the fire took the original. And just like that, the ruins come alive. Not in flames this time, but in memory. You feel something shift. Not just in the air, or the city, but in you. For the first time since the smoke touched the sky, you stop seeing ash as the end. You start seeing it as the soil. What if this isn't the last chapter? What if it's just the compost that makes the next one possible? You rise. And you do something unexpected. You take the steam scroll, the real one, and hand it to the girl. She blinks. "What? You've got the brain for this," you say. "And better handwriting." She laughs once. "That is definitely true." You reach into your satchel and add the commentary scroll. Keep them together. "For now." "Where will you go?" she asks. You pause. And that's when it hits you. You could leave. Take what you found. Escape to another city, Rhodes, maybe, or Antioch, and start a quiet life with loud secrets. Sell fragments, lecture on what was, build a reputation on what others forgot. Or, you could stay. You could rebuild. Even if it's just whispers at first. Because knowledge doesn't need stone walls and domes. It needs people who care. And Alexandria? Alexandria still has a few of those. So you answer, "I'm going to find more." "More what?" You grin. "Everything. Anyone. Whatever's still out there." And then you both sit again, as night folds over the city, gentle and unhurried. The stars come out, hesitant at first, then bolder. You wonder if Eratosthenes ever thought about how many stars might be watching us, how many worlds might mourn their own libraries, their own little collapses. Somewhere behind you, a baby starts crying. Somewhere else, someone laughs, too hard, too high. And in front of you, the charred bones of the world's greatest libraries sit quiet in the dust. But Alexandria? She's still breathing. And tomorrow? She might just remember how to dream. You don't sleep that night. Few do. The air is thick with grief and grit, and even the stars seem hesitant to shine down on a city that just lost its brightest mind. Instead, you sit by a fountain that trickles half-heartedly into a basin crusted with ash, and you listen. To feet padding through the dark, to the occasional clink of a salvaged scroll being unwrapped for examination under moonlight, to the whispers of people trying to piece together what just happened, but mostly to the blame. It begins in murmurs, then escalates. The moment grief turns into anger, Alexandria's streets become a courtroom, and everyone is a prosecutor. They said it was Caesar again. No, it was the cultists. The ones who hated the foreign texts. Maybe it was the scribes themselves. They always thought the library belonged to them. I heard a librarian started it. Burned it down so no one could steal the knowledge. Maybe it was the Jews. Maybe the Christians. Maybe the philosophers. Maybe the Romans. Maybe. You close your eyes. It's begun. The blame game. The post-tragedy ritual where people name suspects like they're ordering from a menu. Where loss demands a villain. Where history becomes a scavenger hunt with no map and too many egos. Historians still argue whether the burning of the library was a single orchestrated act or a string of accidents across centuries. The truth? It probably depends on which scroll you burned and which one you saved. But tonight, the city wants blood. You pass a group of young men arguing beside a broken statue of Thoth. They're armed with makeshift clubs. Their robes are tied like armor. One holds a charred fragment and shouts, "This was ours." Another growls, "They let it burn. They made it burn." You walk faster. Around the next bend, a merchant points at a Roman official and screams, "Where were your guards? Why did you not help us save it?" The Roman, red-eyed and rattled, says, "We weren't told. We didn't know." The merchant cuts him off. "You didn't care." The words hang in the air like smoke that hasn't decided where to settle. You reach a quiet corner and find a makeshift tribunal unfolding. 3 scholars are seated behind a bench of crates. A 4th paces in front of them, clutching a scorched scroll. This was sabotage, he insists. I smelled oil in the southern wing. Not fire oil, lamp oil. Someone planned this. One of the judges raises a tired eyebrow. So now we're blaming saboteurs? Better than blaming nobody, the accuser snaps. There it is. That old human need to know why, even if it means inventing a reason. You sit in the shadow of a colonnade and let the voices wash over you. Names swirl: Caesar, Christians, cultists, careless scribes, jealous rivals, foreign kings, librarians with a god complex. Everyone and no one. Because here's the thing no one wants to admit. Maybe it wasn't malice. Maybe it was just neglect. A spark. A mistake. A bad decision in a hallway full of kindling. But admitting that would mean admitting we weren't careful enough. That we built a miracle and didn't protect it. So we invent enemies. Even you. You think about the scholar with the tea and the coil. He didn't mean to destroy anything. He thought he was improving things. You should hate him. You don't. But some people will. He'll be remembered as a fool. Or a villain. Depending on who writes the scrolls that survive. You remember a scribe once telling you that every version of history is just someone's opinion with better handwriting. Now you believe it. The girl with the scrolls finds you before sunrise. She sits beside you, shoulders hunched. They're accusing the high priestess now, she says. Why? Because she once said knowledge belongs to the gods. You shake your head. She continues. And a Roman envoy. And the market guild. And one of the cooks who left early that day. You look at her. They'll keep going, won't they? She nods. Until they run out of people. Or someone burns the accusers. She's right. That's the thing about blame, it's contagious. It doesn't stop when it finds the truth. It stops when it finds satisfaction. Which, if you know anything about Alexandria, is never. You glance at the city walls in the distance, and for a moment, you wonder, will they last longer than the library? Probably. Stone always outlives scrolls. But memory? That's more slippery. You close your eyes. Try to remember one of the scrolls you saved. A single line. Just one. It comes back slowly. Not perfectly. But enough. Truth cannot be possessed. It must be practiced. You don't know who wrote it, but you do know they probably got blamed for something. Dawn bleeds over Alexandria like watercolor on parchment, pale orange, soft lavender, a light touch that feels wildly out of place after everything. You sit under a colonnade watching the city try to pretend it didn't unravel last night. It's pretending badly. Vendors open their stalls slowly. The fishmongers are quieter than usual. A scribe walks by, still smudged with soot, clutching a bent reed pen like it might cast a protective spell. Someone is scrubbing graffiti off a temple wall. Someone else is adding new graffiti a few feet down. That's Alexandria, proud, petty, persistent. You get up, stretch your legs, and make your way toward the edge of the ruined library. Not the main building, that's a corpse now, but one of the side structures still standing, barely. It was once a reading annex, used mostly by visiting scholars and overflow scrolls. Today, it's something else. An excavation site. Already. A small team has started sifting through the rubble with the urgent devotion of people who don't know what else to do. You count 5, a woman in a temple robe gently sweeping debris with a paintbrush, a boy no older than 12 lifting charred scroll tubes with both hands, a man cataloging fragments on a scrap of bark because all the papyrus is wet or burning. You recognize one of them. The bearded scholar who tried to organize a scroll rescue brigade during the fire. He's got a bandage on his arm now and a look on his face that says sleep is just a rumor he used to believe in. He spots you and waves you over. You came, he says. I keep doing that, you reply. What is this? A miracle, he says, deadpan. Then he shrugs. Or a pile of disappointment. We're still deciding. You crouch beside him. He holds out a brittle scroll fragment. The edges are crisped. The center's legible, barely. You read, if heat is trapped and turned, then force may follow. A breath catches in your throat. It's not the same scroll you found, but it's speaking the same language. Steam. Force. Direction. The seeds of something that could have bloomed too soon for history to catch up. He leans close. Found this near the West Dome. Must have been in storage. Do you think it can be saved? He exhales. It must be. Or at least recorded. Even if we only recover 5 lines from the whole collection, we owe them that much. You look around. People are already mapping what's left. Sketching out room shapes. Making guesses. Asking questions. It's like watching grief try to become action. And it's not just scholars. 2 stonemasons are helping reinforce the corners. A baker's son is hauling buckets of water to dampen hot spots. A man with one eye is sweeping ash out of the walkways, humming hymn to Isis under his breath. It's not organized. It's not pretty. But it's happening. You remember a line from a scroll you once translated, badly. Even fire cannot silence what soil remembers. This is that. You help for a while. Just small things. Carrying supplies. Marking walls. Whispering when you find something intact. It feels good, in that quiet, primal way of doing work that has no promise but still matters. Someone unearths a statue of Athena, half buried under a beam. They clean the soot off her face and lean her gently against a column. A girl tucks a flower behind the statue's ear. It's ridiculous. And exactly right. You slip away after a few hours, your limbs sore, your throat dry. You head toward the edge of the city, where the sea glimmers like it doesn't know or care what's burning behind it. There's a man there, standing on the breakwall, tossing small scroll fragments into the water. You approach slowly. He turns. You recognize him. A former official, once part of the library's administrative board. He holds out a sliver of papyrus. Useless, he says. It was a laundry list. You squint. Still history. He chuckles bitterly. History's a mess. I should know. I've managed it for 20 years. He looks out at the waves. I was there the day they debated whether to catalog magical texts. Half the room thought they were dangerous. The other half thought they were hilarious. In the end, we put them in a locked room and forgot the key. You wait. They always thought the fire would come from enemies, he continues. Never from inside. You nod. Fire doesn't read blueprints. He snorts. Neither did half our scribes. And then, just like that, he tosses the papyrus and walks away, shoulders hunched. You watch the scrap float, then sink. 1 line. 1 name. 1 joke about sandals. Gone. Not important, maybe. But still lost. You pick up a shard nearby. It's blank. You slip it into your bag anyway. Because maybe one day, someone will need proof that not everything was destroyed. Some things were saved. Some things were forgotten. And some were left behind because nobody realized they mattered. Yet, you walk back through Alexandria like someone drifting through a half-dream. Not asleep, but not quite awake either. The smoke has thinned, though you still taste it in the back of your throat, like regret brewed into vapor. Around you, the city hums differently now. Quieter. Not hushed, exactly, just listening. And it's not just the scholars anymore. A fishmonger is sketching symbols into a crate lid, muttering about a scroll he once saw that taught him how to get tilapia with elegance. A street musician sings verses she claims were passed down from her grandmother, who stole them from the library after sneaking in dressed as a courier. An old man is telling anyone who'll listen that he once held a scroll explaining how the earth floats on water, and he's pretty sure it's still true because his basement leaks every winter. Everyone has a piece of it. Everyone is trying to keep it alive. You pass a courtyard where children are playing with bits of broken pottery, reenacting the last debate between 2 philosophers who, from what you overhear, apparently settled a moral argument by slapping each other with scrolls. That probably didn't happen, but you don't correct them. The legend is already better than the truth. That's how the library lives now. Not in vaults, but in people. Still, there are others who want to bring it back more literally. You find them in a workshop near the Amphora district, what used to be a wine storage depot and is now buzzing with scribes, engineers, builders, and that one guy who insists he's a papyrus whisperer. They're rebuilding. Not the whole thing, not the great domes, not the towering halls, but something smaller, tighter. A lean, defiant version. A table here. A shelf there. One stone foundation laid atop another, like a whispered dare to the gods of entropy. You speak to one of the organizers, a short woman with fire-calloused hands and eyes that blink in syllables. We won't recreate the library, she says. But we can restart its idea. You nod. A little reckless hope. She grins. The best kind. You spend an hour helping them scrub soot from bricks. A child delivers reed pens like a solemn priestess. Someone finds a water-stained scroll in a pile of rubble and reads it aloud. It's a tragic love poem. Badly written. Painfully sincere. Everyone applauds anyway. Because it's a scroll, and it survived, and that's all that matters. You return to the plaza at dusk. The air is cooler now. Almost clean. A small crowd has gathered, not to grieve, but to share. Someone has lit a controlled fire in a ceramic bowl, not for destruction, but warmth. People pass around fragments, tales, even jokes that once filled the margins of great texts. And then someone speaks. A man with a soft voice. Barely taller than the fire's glow. He holds a tablet and says, "Do you know why we built it?" The crowd hushes. Because someone had to. He pauses. Knowledge is heavy. It accumulates. It demands caretakers. Alexandria didn't build the library because it was convenient. We built it because we had to. He gestures to the rubble behind him. And now, we have to again. Maybe smaller. Maybe messier. But the point isn't the building. It's the asking. The gathering. The stubborn belief that wisdom is worth carrying, even when it breaks your back. He lowers the tablet. Someone claps. Others nod. One person sneezes dramatically, which is as much applause as you're going to get in a city still covered in ash. You sit beside a young man transcribing oral tales into a fresh notebook. He turns to you and asks, "Do you think we'll ever find the originals again?" You think of the hidden scrolls. The sister vault. The steam diagrams under your tunic. You shrug. Some, maybe. Others, we'll just have to reinvent. He chews on his reed pen. That sounds exhausting. It is, you say. But so was copying everything by hand the first time. He grins. You don't tell him the rest of what you're thinking, that maybe reinvention is part of preservation. That sometimes, what survives isn't the scroll, but the impulse to write it again. You glance across the plaza and spot the girl, the one with ink-stained fingers and a scroll satchel you'd trust with your life. She gives you a small nod. You return it. Then you look up. The sky is clear now. Stars are sharp. Somewhere far off, ships creak in the harbor, their sails tugged by wind that smells like salt and stubbornness. And in that silence, you feel it. The library isn't gone. It's reloading. You take a deep breath, the cool night air filling your lungs with a promise. The city sleeps fitfully around you, a patchwork of whispered memories and half-forgotten dreams. You walk slowly through the plaza, where a faint glow from lanterns paints long shadows on the cracked stones. The weight of everything lost presses on you, but so does something lighter, a flicker, a pulse. You think about the scrolls still hidden, the stories carried in whispered songs, the memories etched on broken pottery, the knowledge passed from teacher to pupil even when ink was scarce. The library is not walls or domes. It's people. Ideas. The stubborn refusal to let the past die quietly. You pause near the spot where the brass teapot once sat, the catalyst for this tragedy and, somehow, the symbol of its complexity. Tea, fire, knowledge, loss. All tangled in a dance as old as civilization itself. You reach into your satchel and pull out the steam scroll, the one that started as a fragile hope and has become a lifeline. You unroll it carefully, fingers tracing the faded diagrams. You imagine someone centuries ago dreaming of machines that could change the world, dreaming big in a place that believed knowledge should be free, dangerous, and alive. You fold the scroll gently and tuck it back. The night is quiet, save for a soft breeze that carries the distant murmur of the sea. Somewhere nearby, a child laughs, too young to know the weight of history but old enough to feel the magic in a new story. You smile. Because the fire that took the library also set something else alight. An idea. That knowledge belongs to everyone. That it cannot be burned away. That even in ashes, it can bloom. You walk toward the city's edge, the horizon brightening with the first hints of dawn. The library may be gone, but its spirit, its fire, still burns. And as you fade into the waking world, you carry that spark with you. So, wherever you are, whoever you are, keep the flame alive. Because the greatest library isn't the one built from stone and scrolls. It's the one built inside every curious mind. Now, as the night settles softly around you, feel your breath slow. Let the weight of the day's stories ease away like smoke drifting on a gentle breeze. Imagine the charred scrolls turning back into papyrus, the flames fading into warm embers that cradle ancient knowledge safe and sound. You're part of this long, winding story, a guardian of memories, a keeper of ideas. The library's fire reminds us that while buildings burn, curiosity and wonder endure. So rest now, knowing that every question you ask, every story you tell, keeps that spark glowing in the dark. Let the quiet hum of the night wrap around you like a velvet blanket. Tomorrow, the world wakes again with endless stories to discover, and you'll be ready to hear them. Sleep peacefully, knowing the flame inside you is brighter than any fire outside. Good night, and sweet dreams. Sweet dreams.